Hello everyone. In this presentation, I just want to show you guys how you can be able to use SQL Server Operator called UNPIVOT to reconstruct the presentation of your data. You know, how your data will be extracted and looks like as soon as you extract it from your database table. But first of all, I'm gonna create a table that I will use for this operator because I believe that I don't have it in my database. So let's go ahead and create the table. Right now I'm telling SQL Server from here if object ID, this object ID is not empty, if it exists, to drop it, then create new one table called DB, or this is the schema and the name of the table. This is the ID. I give the table ID int. So by default, if the increment need be, SQL Server will handle that by default. And the first row, the second row, third row, and so forth. And the data type is going to be int numbers. And at the same time I'm going to insert the values at the same time. So now I'm telling SQL Server to insert values insert the ID and the items in these customers. So this is the value I'm going to insert to each row. This is the salesperson's ID and the items in each customer. So let's run this query real quick before we can be able to do the main pivot. Good. It said that 6 rows affected. Let's refresh. Okay, so now this table that I've created and inserted some value inside it. So the value that I've inserted inside this table, that's what I'm going to use to do the pivot and extract it. So as soon when this data is being extracted, it's going to be kind of presented in a different format. Okay, so I'm going to use the statement called pivot to do this. So now this is the main statement I'm going to use to do the tricks. So here I'm telling SQL Server to select from this database sales ID, customer, and sales. This is how it's going to be presented when this data is being extracted from the table I just created. Now select the ID, each customers, each rows, so the customers. Now from this table called UNPIVOT, UNPIVOT, abbreviation of pivot, just to make sure that it corresponds with the statement that I'm using. So now this is the statement UNPIVOT. Now I have to use this operator to transform how this data is being presented. So up is like up pivot, the cells made for customers. So each cells for the customers in these columns, the name of the customers in these customers, as present it as UNPIVOT, the table that I was created just recently. So let's run this code, and mind you, this is the one I just created, and this is how it's going to be presented, and it's going to select each item, each sales or item purchased by the customers, all these customers. So let's run this code. Yes. So now this is the sales person IDs. This is the IDs, the people that the persons that sold, that attend to our customers. This is the customers, this is their numbers, and this is the sales, the item they purchased, the sales made by salesperson. Okay, but originally this is how this data is in original table. This is how it is in the original table. This is how it's been presented, but I used currently I use operator call UNPIVOT to present it and reconstruct it in another format. So the format, this is the format. So this format now is showing customers ID. Is showing salesperson's ID, the customers ID, and the items, the sales made by salesperson and items purchased by the customers, horizontally. But originally this is how it was presented. It just presented only sales order ID, customers ID, and salesperson's ID. The items wasn't presented originally, but when I use pivot pivot, I told SQL Server to present to me sales for the customers that is in this table, in these columns that each one made. So this is why it the SQL Server presented it in this form: sales person's IDs, the customers IDs, and sales, which is the item they purchase. So thank you for watching. I'll see you some other time. This is UNPIVOT. Thank you very much.